Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing fantastically well. It is Connor here, and we are back with a bit of a news update regarding Leeds United. As I say, I hope you're all doing fantastically well. If you wouldn't mind liking the content, if you wouldn't mind getting your opinion in the section below, I would absolutely love that as well. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? 62% of you aren't subscribed. Make sure you hit the red button, tick the notification bell, and you will be updated anytime I upload, which, goodness me, what a fantastic little button that is. So listen, Crescencio Somerville, incredible news the other day, and it really sort of spurred me on. There's a lot of people doubting Somerville at this moment in time. A lot of you might say, where? Not on social media, but in terms of him growing into that first team development, there's a lot of people turning around saying, well, is he ready? He's still so young. He's still never made a championship, never mind Premier League appearance, and you would be right with that comment. But interestingly enough, Leeds United have rejected a total of 5 bids over the summer. Now, what did we know at the start of the window? Well, we knew that Crescencio potentially would be leaving Leeds United. A report was festered earlier on about Niall Huggins and Crescencio Somerville apparently leaving Ellen Road. And we all turned around, we thought that's a bit of a surprise because once a player's out on loan, normally that's it under Marcelo Bielsa. But the fantastic news was that wasn't true. And clubs like Club Bruges, Swansea, apparently Benfica had taken a look at him. There were several clubs that had looked at Crescencio, and Leeds had rejected every single bid. So was this a thought process for Leeds United from the start? You know, there was interest apparently once again from Holland, which apparently he's always had, obviously, his home country. So yeah, I think that's absolutely fascinating that Leeds had that sort of long-term plan for Crescencio already in terms of, did they know that Helder Costa was going to leave? Did they know that a certain winger was always going to become available towards the back end of the window? Fascinating stuff. But yeah, great to see that Leeds United as a collective are thoroughly behind Crescencio Somerville, and he really is part of the first team now. So what a weapon we've got there. Another report has suggested that in January, Leeds United are going to go back in for Lewis OBrien. Now, what do we know about Leeds United straight off the bat? Well, the money's there. We showed that right at the back end of the window when Leeds decided to splash now on 25 to 28 million on Daniel James, which none of us really expected. I think, as we said on the Room Mill several times, it's all about whether or not Marcelo Bielsa values these players. And obviously Lewis O'Brien's only got a year left on his deal. Our town really going to want to let him sort of drive that contract all the way down. He's probably not going to accept another one from what you'd expect. The interest that he's had this summer from Crystal Palace and Leeds United, he probably thinks that he can play higher. It's probably not going to happen for him. So are Leeds going to go in for a reduced value in January? Was this actually a really smart decision for the club? Because obviously with Lewis O'Brien at this moment in time, his stock is high. As I say, he's got a year left on his deal. But if we wait until January, that's going to be significantly reduced. And is it going to be something of Leeds United sort of biding the time and waiting for it to happen? It's going to be fascinating to see, but it will make a lot of sense from a Leeds United standpoint. I don't see it happening because we've seen Andrea Radrizzani come out online and say Adam Forshaw, when asked about the midfield options, technically right now is Adam Forshaw better than Lewis O'Brien? Well, he's played in the Premier League before. He was touted by Marcelo Bielsa as the best player at the club when he first came in, and Bielsa is holding on to that as well. He said it recently in terms of what he said right at the start, and if he still believes it. So I would probably say yes. You know, Lewis O'Brien's not proved himself at that top level. Obviously, he's 7 years older, is Adam Forshaw, than Lewis O'Brien, so there's so much more development there. But I just don't know whether or not Leeds are going to go in for it. It all depends on what happens with Adam Forshaw. If Adam Forshaw gets injured, if Adam Forshaw's form is off, like we saw with Helder Costa, I think Leeds could potentially make that move for Lewis O'Brien in the summer. Let me know what you think in the section below. And the big news today as well, Marcelo Bielsa stopped Leeds United signing Noah Lang. That's according to The Athletic. Lang was strongly linked with a move to Leeds United in the summer transfer window, and apparently that was genuine. It was genuine from Leeds United's side. I knew, that he was part of the long list, but apparently Leeds United were very, very much interested in him. They were talking to his representatives, all this sort of stuff. But apparently, when I say talking to his representatives, I mean inquiring about the fee. Victor Orta wanted to sign the Dutch forward, hence the inquiries, and Bielsa didn't give the approval. Now, there was a lot of chat about his moral compass about halfway through the summer, the anti-Semitic stuff that was chanted by Noah Lang, which was completely out of order, and I think we all thought on the moral compass that that's why Leeds United didn't go any further. But it wasn't that. Apparently it was all about his defensive capabilities in this Leeds United side. Now, what have you seen with Dan James? Dan James absolutely grafts his arse off. He grafts and grafts and grafts and grafts. Whereas, obviously, we're not seeing that much of Noah Lang, but according to Marcelo Bielsa and probably his dossier and his database, that doesn't happen. But as I've just said, what you get with Dan James is a work ethic. And maybe that's why all along, throughout these 3 years, it's always been Dan James for Marcelo Bielsa. Because as a winger, listen, I've heard from Dominic Booth, who was the Manchester United MEN reporter, that apparently they described him at Manchester United as a defensive winger. So his capabilities in that department are absolutely, top stuff, essentially. Going forward, he's frightening in terms of his pace, but going back, he's as good, said Dominic Booth to me. So that's a massive statement. So, you look at all these wingers. We've been talking about several during this window, haven't we? Ryan Kent, you always see him in an offensive capacity, but you don't really, when I've watched Ryan Kent, I don't really think to myself, you are a proper grafter, getting back. Noah Lang, haven't watched that much of him, but Bielsa's saying it. Dan James, stand out when you do watch him, is a very, very defensive player. Calvin Phillips, fantastic, wasn't he? Obviously, Patrick Bamford's in there as well, waiting in the wings. He'd have scored 3 last night, wouldn't he? Let's be honest. We're always going to say that being Leeds fans, but he would have scored 3 last night. Calvin Phillips was absolutely phenomenal. Him partnered with Declan Rice. I mean, we saw the racists, didn't we? Unfortunately, the Hungarian fans who were pelting stuff and chanting horrendous things at England's black players, which is, it's just horrendous to see, isn't it? It just completely soured the game, and it almost, it spurred you on, didn't it? And I think it spurred the players on in a strange sort of way. They went up a gear, and I think obviously they started hearing the chants in the second half, this, that, and the other, which is just, as I keep saying, horrific to hear for the players. Apparently, Jude Bellingham, as young as 18, was getting abused, and age isn't a factor. You shouldn't be getting abused at any point. But it's just so sad, isn't it? It really, really, really makes me upset. But England, and obviously Calvin had been subject to it as well, but England ran out 4-0 winners. Calvin was phenomenal, him and Rice together. The Calvin smash was in full effect last night, and they were falling around a bit, the Hungarian players, weren't they? But Calvin was just beyond belief. Again, statistics have been released once again by LUFC data about how good this England team is with Calvin there, the amount of clean sheets, the amount of midfield breakups he's had, the amount of transitional movements he starts with his passing and all this sort of stuff. So it's fantastic to see. And Calvin, I was saying it last night on Leeds United Live, that him and Patrick Bamford are symbolic of where Leeds United now are in terms of our development and growth of a club. Only 4, 5, 6 years ago, we were in absolute shambles, weren't we? And to see those two in the squad is absolutely fantastic. And hopefully what we're going to see against Andorra is a Patrick Bamford performance. And as well, guys, what we were talking about Dan James earlier on, apparently, I've gone into several sources, Leeds went in with not 3, but 4 bids before the nigh on £30 million deal was agreed. Apparently on, I believe it was Sunday after the Wolves game when Manchester United won the game 1-0, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer turned round to him afterwards. Daniel James said, "You're not going to get that many minutes." But before the game, Daniel James was in the mindset of he's going to stay at Man United, he's going to fight for his place, etc., etc. Leeds came in with the bid, and it got sorted extremely quickly. I think it's absolutely fabulous that we've got Dan James. I'm really excited to see him. I think what Bielsa's going to be able to do with him is going to be incredible. So mouldable as a player. We talked about Crescencio at the start, and now we're going to talk about Sam Greenwood. We talk about that development plan of it being narrow between the first team and that obviously under 23s team. We saw Leeds United developing, especially last year, but even in terms of this year with Amari Miller, Leo Hjelde, and obviously Lewis Bate. We saw us developing that, and there's almost a 2-year plan with Leeds. You get into that second year of your time in the under 23s, and you're very close to the first team. That's what I love about Leeds United, and that's why it's attractive for so many youngsters. Sam Greenwood is at that point now with Leeds where he's going to be part of the first team, exactly the same as Somerville. I probably believe the exact same as maybe Gelhardt and Drame. But apparently Leeds rejected multiple offers for Sam Greenwood before the transfer window closed, even toward to the back day, the last day of the window. There was Swansea, Bournemouth, and apparently 2 or 3 lower end Premier League clubs looking at Sam Greenwood. So it just shows you the development of this side and how many other clubs are looking at our players and our under 23s. And, you know, I watched a Man City thing the other day, and a lot of it is about selling on the youngsters and keeping the academy going. And that's academy football nowadays. It's turned into a bit of a business. But the beauty about Leeds United is that will happen. That's natural. That's going to keep Leeds afloat in terms of, you know, building an academy and selling on players for maybe 3-4 million and putting that in the transfer kitty and developing the stadium and stuff like that. But those players still going out and playing football, you know, like a little bit like Niall Huggins. Some players won't make it, but the beauty is the gems do make it. And you'll always get that chance with Leeds United, which is always fantastic to see. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. Have you enjoyed this? I want to hear your opinions on absolutely everything. And of course, I will see you either tomorrow or Monday. Cheers.